What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out another very interesting or intense or controversial or thought-provoking, depending on where you stand in the spectrum. But this is Matt Walsh destroying. According to the title, it says Matt Walsh destroys unprepared transgender activist. I'm curious, so let's get to it.
Transgender people tend to have the brain structure that confirms their identity that they identify with. And you can look that up.
Why did they zoom in her face like that?
Transgender people tend to have the brain structure that confirms their identity that they identify with. And you can look that up.
I will look that up.
Yeah, it's fact.
I will look that up and I won't find it.
Yeah.
It's not a fact. It's not a fact.
Should we all pull out Google really quick and look?
So you're saying a trans man has the brain of a woman?
So you've talked a lot about the mental illness and depressed and anxious population in the trans community, but you don't talk about the happy people in the trans community and how these preventative measures of, let's say, like puberty and the surgeries that go for gender affirmation and how these are life-changing and life-saving. I know many people...
How do you know?
Oh, okay. 1 second, if I can finish my conversation.
Okay.
Many people in my life have had these interventions made, and it's saved their lives. I can list dozens of people in my life. So what do you have to say
Dozens?
for...
You can list dozens of people who had surgeries and drugs as children and would be dead today if they hadn't?
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Dozens of people who have had interventions, including gender affirming, let's say therapies, yes, hormones, surgeries that have made their lives better. I'm not saying it didn't force them to commit suicide, but it made their lives better. What do you have to say for the happy trans community?
I guess I would throw back at you first, because the burden of proof is on you on this one. And I'll explain why the burden of proof is on you. Because, as I went over in the talk, for thousands of years, human beings existed, and there was no such thing as trying to medically transition people into another gender. And as far as we know, there was no suicide epidemic because of it. And then in the last few years, people like yourself have come along and said, we desperately need to do this or people will be in despair and they might kill themselves.
What changed?
So you are making a claim that contradicts common sense, science, biology, also the entire experience of the whole history of the human race. And so what that means is that the burden of proof is on you to support it. And so I'm going to ask you, you said that people need this stuff so they can live happier lives and potentially it'd be life-saving, you said even. Aside from your anecdotes of your friends who told you so, how do you know that?
Okay, so thinking back to when I was 16 in an anatomy class, when I learned that transgender people tend to have the brain structure that confirms their identity that they identify with. And you can look that up. That's a fact.
I will look that up.
Yeah, it's fact.
I will look that up and I won't find it.
Yeah.
It's not a fact. It's not a fact.
Should we all pull out Google really quick and look?
So you're saying a trans man has the brain of a woman?
No. I'm saying that a trans man who identifies as a man will tend to have similar brain structure that a cis man would.
And where did you get that from?
Look it up. It's literally, I'm telling you, I learned it from my anatomy class when I was 16.
I think this is incorrect without even having to look into it, because I think neuroscientists have a different theory to explain this. Is it a thing with neuropath and neuroplasticity that can show that the human brain can learn and unlearn certain things depending on what the influence is or what they tend to do more? Something like that. There's a lot that can, even though not directly explain, but a lot of questions can arise from what she's saying right now. Like if you question it deeply enough, you might find that there are loopholes in the concept. I mean, I'm not saying she's wrong because I haven't seen it. I don't know for a fact if she's wrong, but I wouldn't say she's right, because I think there are lots of loopholes and a lot of questions that I would have if somebody told me this.
And I looked up the fact before I walked up here because I knew that you'd ask.
Okay. That's not true, but it also doesn't answer the question. So let's try to stay focused on one false claim at a time if we can, because we might get bogged down.
Okay.
So you said You actually started by saying that blocking puberty, which is chemical castration of a child,
Just one example, yeah.
yeah, is life-saving.
It can be.
How do you know?
Because there are children who have been suicidal that have had these interventions made.
What children? How do you know? And how many children have had that done
Me personally,
and then
I
are
haven't
still
met
suicidal?
children. Me personally.
Yeah, she's listening to the wrong people. I just feel like she's an innocent kid, somebody nice, just listening to the wrong people.
How do you know? And how many children have had that done
Me personally,
and then
I
are still
haven't met
suicidal?
children. Me personally, I haven't met enough trans children to answer that question.
Okay.
But I know
You
that
are
the
making-
research exists.
You're making this statement, you're stating it as a fact in front of all these people. There must be a reason, there must be something that you encountered that led you to this rather radical conclusion that to save a child's life, you have to chemically castrate him.
Not every child. No, sir.
Okay, well, that is what you just said. The drugs we give to kids for puberty blockers, so-called puberty blockers, originally are cancer drugs used to treat prostate cancer. They're also used to chemically castrate sex offenders and child rapists. Now we give them to physically healthy kids. You're saying that we need to do that or they will die. And so one last time I'm going to ask you, what evidence do you have of that remarkable claim?
I don't think I claimed that every child would benefit from that.
Well, no, I didn't say you did.
Okay,
You said puberty blockers
you did.
you said puberty blockers are life-saving. What
I
evidence do you
said
have for that?
they can be.
So
The
how do you
evidence
know?
is the encounters with patients who have had these procedures done, and it has saved their, I don't want to say it saved their lives, but it has made their lives better. I can't confirm whether or not they're alive right this second.
Yeah, you can't come like this at Matt Walsh, especially with his experience. You know, there's no facts, there's no logic to what you're saying, and you're not even sure of it. He's gonna chew you up in this argument. I kind of feel bad for her because it's like she's out of place. You know, I mean, by out of place, I mean she's having doubts, but asking it in the wrong way, and you know, in front of a lot of people, which would make her feel embarrassed to do. No, you can't do this. And she seems very young and cool to me, but she's just been listening to the wrong people. And she's trying to ask this question. Maybe she's trying to see if she can be an activist and stand for transgender people. But then she's wrong. I think she's wrong.
But there are children that it has helped. So what do you have to say for the happy trans community who has benefited from these procedures? That's my question.
I guess what I have
for
to
you.
say is that your entire question is built on a whole stack of false premises that you can't begin to even remotely defend. So it's a faulty question from the start. I reject your premise. I absolutely reject that there are any kids who need to be chemically castrated in order to be happy.
Okay, let's...
I reject that.
You can't show up and present.
Yeah, I'll end that one right there. I'll put a link to his channel so you can go listen to his comments. I didn't know it was a reaction to a reaction. My defense. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I strongly believe that that young lady has a lot of doubts, especially growing up in a society that might have influenced her with the wrong information. I feel like people like that, they need a one-on-one consultation or one-on-one conversation, not consultation, pardon me, but conversation with Matt Walsh or, you know, people that go to their schools, maybe the Candice Owens, the Ben Shapiro's. They need to talk one-on-one with them. It's not something you go hold a mic and, you know, try to ask those questions in an open room. You're going to feel embarrassed, and when you feel embarrassed, you would hold your ground more because you're going to be angry, you're going to be vicious, and there's no way you're going to pick or listen to what Matt Walsh might be saying. So it's good to have a conversation with this young lady and answer her questions, because she didn't really have a strong premise from where she was coming from. Her context were entirely flawed. But one thing I can tell from her tone and her personality is she was trying to come from a place of love, which might be channeled, you know, channeled wrongly. Anyways, let me know what you think about that video. If there's anything you want to add, correct, or critique, feel free to do so in the comment section. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.